This map shows the peak territorial borders of the Ottoman Empire. At its absolute height, the state stretched across 3 continents, claiming sovereignty over the waters of the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Nile, and the Danube. According to official state mythology, this massive expansion was ordained by God. The story goes that the empire's founder, Osman, had a prophetic vision of a giant tree bursting from his chest, its roots and branches spreading out to swallow the known world. To back up this divine mandate, the state claimed that Osman's family, the Kai tribe, carried a noble bloodline that could be traced all the way back to the biblical figure of Noah. But there is a problem with both the tree and the bloodline. Modern historians classify these stories as a creative rediscovery, a polite way of saying they were entirely fabricated by royal historians in the 15th century. These foundational texts were written more than 150 years after Osman actually lived and died. So if we remove the retroactive magic and divine intervention, we are left with a very human question. How did this empire actually begin? To understand the true origins of a 600-year superpower, we have to strip away the polished propaganda of the imperial court and examine the gritty, chaotic geopolitical reality of 13th century Anatolia. On a 13th century map of Anatolia, the dominant regional power, the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum, collapses, splintering into small, competitive Turkish beyliks. These fragile new states faced a shared threat. To the east, the military machine of the Mongol Ilkhanates pressed inward, demanding tribute. Tucked away in the western districts of Sut and Bilecik was the historical Osman I. He was not a global emperor or a chosen savior. He was a minor, highly pragmatic border lord trying to keep his people alive. He did, however, possess one massive advantage over the other Anatolian beyliks, and it had nothing to do with destiny. It was his physical placement on the map. Osman's initial momentum came from raw geographical luck and his ability to ruthlessly capitalize on sitting exactly on the fault line of a crumbling region. Directly to Osman's west sat the Byzantine Empire. Once a formidable superpower, it was now severely weakened, rapidly losing control of its Anatolian frontier provinces and leaving its borders exposed. This strategic map illustrates Osman's approach. While other Turkish leaders exhausted their resources fighting each other for scraps of Anatolia, Osman directed his military strictly westward. He bypassed the bloody wars of attrition with his neighbors and pushed outward into Byzantine territory. As he captured land, Osman transitioned from a nomadic raider to a state builder. He established a formal government, operating under a unique dynastic rule where, hypothetically, every male member of the family was eligible to govern. This steady, calculated land grab, paired with strict administrative organization, laid a mechanical foundation for permanent settlement. This strategy culminated in 1326, shortly after Osman's death, when his son Orhan successfully captured the major Byzantine city of Bursa, giving the Ottomans their first true capital. Moving from temporary tribal raids to a territorially anchored government with a working capital proved that careful administration and military pragmatism were the actual seeds of the Ottoman state. Osman never lived to see his state cross into Europe or Africa, yet his early strategic positioning is exactly what allowed his successors to eventually capture Constantinople and claim the universal caliphate. Which brings us back to our original question. If the rise of the Ottomans was the result of brilliant, earthly border tactics, why did later generations bother inventing a prophetic dream and a fabricated lineage? The answer lies in the problem of scale. As the empire annexed vast territories over the centuries, it morphed from a border principality into an immense, highly bureaucratic superpower, tasked with ruling millions of incredibly diverse subjects. Raw military strength can conquer land, but it struggles to hold it indefinitely. To justify their authority over multi-ethnic populations and outrank rival Islamic dynasties, the sultans required a narrative of divine mandate. The fabricated bloodline to Noah and the story of the tree bursting from Osman's chest solved this problem perfectly. They retroactively engineered a grand destiny, making Ottoman supremacy look preordained rather than accidental. Geographic opportunism, sharp timing, and calculated warfare are the physical tools required to build an empire. But it is the deliberate construction of a powerful, unifying myth that allows that empire to survive for 600 years.